Okay, well, let's see if we can find what we're looking for. What is that coming up? We do not require that. Okay. Well, we are in the. Are we recording? Are we actually broadcasting? Yeah, okay, we're picking up. This is good. Now we just got to figure out how to find us. That's the important factor. Trying to figure out where the live feed is. Let us see what happens if we find it on YouTube or on Facebook here. Still trying to figure out why I have trouble finding it, but I'm here. Oh, and Chad. Welcome to the chat room, Smith. Hey, Smith and Chad. My apologies. Still trying to get things. I'm still trying to figure out how to find me actually on YouTube itself. I know it. I was on it last week, but trying to figure out where to find it is always a fun thing. But since I'm not having a whole lot of fun with that, doesn't find it there. What do we got? So hopefully things are going well on your end. In all fairness, Chad, the reality of it is that I decided to do Saturday because of the fact that you brought it to my attention that the people on the other side of the world are not going to be able to see it. I mean, they'd have to be up until, midnight at the earliest. And that just doesn't work well. Besides, I was looking for 2 or 3 times. Already got that one. I figured that, I was looking for 2 or 3 times during the week, and these are the only 2 days that I can actually guarantee when I've got available. But I'm going to have to talk to somebody about how to actually track this down. Track it down and find out where I am. Because I don't rightly know. It says 10 there. What the heck is going on? Let's go in that and just see what it says. Oh, there we go. Hopefully that gives a link. Oh, look at that. I go live and it sends me a link and I can get right to the chat, right to the room. This way I can actually watch what's going on. I don't need the video, the noise there. Okay. Now I can actually see what is happening because now I can read it. Okay. I knew that the reality is I'm still getting used to this thing. But like you, I've already got my coffee sorted around. Just killing a little time while I wait for the feed to go. Well, the feed is already live, but since I said I was starting at 8, this first few minutes is just to get myself organized and make sure I know what I'm up to. So I'll just do a little puttering while I'm at it. One of the drawbacks of having your office tightly tied in one place. Where did I put it? Right there. One of the biggest challenges people run into, in all fairness, as far as I found, is trying to figure out where to start. Now, I'm going to have to talk to somebody, and it'll probably end up being Dave, or I've got to talk to somebody about it, about how to make sure that how to actually set things up so that the Buy Me a Coffee is working properly. That obviously, that was done through. Okay. Now I've still got to get some of the odds and ends sorted around. But what I'm looking at today primarily is making certain that people, I figure I needed a place to start. So I'm looking at the similarities between humans and everything else, because the similarities are mind-boggling. But that being said, and the fact that you're already here. Oh, Okay. I appreciate that, Chad. The the thing I've got to look at is trying to figure out how to make sure that the what you call it, that the buy me a coffee site is accessible. I think I set it up a little off. I know it takes it, but I don't know how to get to it or anything like that at this point. The streaming right now, like I said, because where are we here? Yeah, we're just about 8 o'clock. I'm not going into the topic until we hit 8 to give people a chance to actually get in. Hey, welcome. And we have Reality's Edge with Lawrence Burchett checking in. Welcome to the chat room there, Lawrence. Just going through a whole pile of stuff here before the show gets started. I tend to multitask, right? When I'm on air, I don't do it so much. But when I'm actually working, when I'm actually talking to people, or like talking to people one-on-one, or I'm working on, emails and what have you, quite often I will actually have 3 and 4 things on the go at the same time. Right now, I just figured I had the time before the show starts to get everything moving. I trust everybody is doing well. Lord knows, I managed again. I have been giving people ideas on how I deal with things. This doesn't make it the only way to deal with it. But what it does do is it gives you a method that has worked for me. One of the biggest things that I found is so many people are going, I desire my life to change, but how do I get it to change? Where do I start? And the reality is, not a problem there at all, Lawrence. Glad to help. The funny part about it is people know they really desire to change where their life is going, but few know how to begin. And how to begin is literally done by picking a spot and starting. And that's literally all there is to it. Wherever you're standing. I've mentioned this to people all along. And here's the thing. Okay. This neat little list here is always someone on the go. I just use a scrap of paper. Some people use computers, right? Well, most people use computers. I'm the dinosaur here. But managed to get just went through my bank. Credit card had a bill coming due, not for another 2 weeks, but I figured I had the money, get it out of the way, get it dealt with. This idea of waiting, some people have told me, wait until a week before the bill is due. I'm like, no, that ain't going to happen. Because what I find, and I don't know about you, I used to be a phenomenal procrastinator. Something to keep in mind is, and I know some of you are out on the road. Some of you managed to be home. But for those of you that are out on the road, especially if you're working on the road, okay, the one thing when I talk about an office, okay, or I talk about where your primary workspace is, in your case, that applies to your cab. Your cabin, if you happen to have one in your sleeper unit, that is your office, which I'm sure you're already aware of. If not, there's something seriously wrong with the way you've been looking at things, or at least seriously ineffective. Okay, looks like we are just about ready to go here. And just a quick reminder, people. If you've got questions, please put them in, write them in capital in all caps so I can find them. Makes it so much easier for me to respond. I will do my best. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you've got a question, if you've asked a question and we don't get it answered, take a look at the list, take a look at the bottom of my videos, okay, and drop me a private line. Anyone in my videos, I don't honestly know about the live stream, because I forgot to check, whether they put whether the bottom end, try that again, whether the list of contact numbers or contact access points is actually listed. I will have to do that, and if they aren't, I've got to find a way to add them. But if you take a look at any of the videos on my channel, on my YouTube channel, you'll find a whole list of ways of getting a hold of me. Okay, and if I don't get to your question, for pity's sakes, absolutely drop me a line, and I will do my best to answer it. Okay, now, because of the fact that, well, I had to have a topic to start with somewhere, I figured today that I was going to look at literally the similarities between off-worlders, what many of you call aliens, ancient races, in other words, the races that evolved here on Earth, and most of whom are still here, and humans. Okay, because people keep looking at the different races going, oh, there's aliens, there's all these weird races around, and they're all so strange. They're really not. They look different, they've got different toys, they've got different philosophies, but ultimately people are the same. Okay, from every walk of life. Even I was shown a video the other day that was just absolutely phenomenal. It was caught on drone, and it showed trees moving rapidly back and forth. Welcome, Carl. Glad you made it. The funny thing is, Carl here he's a wonderful chap. I've talked to him a number of times, but the neat part with him is, and Chad brought it to my attention that I was going to have a problem with people on the other side if I was only running it on Sunday, that I was going to run into troubles as far as the people on the other side of the world, that they would not be able to connect because it'd be just the wrong time of day. If I'm going on at 8 o'clock at night tomorrow, which I will be, okay, 8 o'clock at night tomorrow, we push it to the other end of the place, okay, and we're now looking at 4 o'clock in the morning on the other side of the world. So I figured, well, if I'm going to do one targeting the east side, my hemisphere, the Western Hemisphere, okay, then I figured it was only reasonable. I was looking for a couple of other days to go live anyway, but the only 2 days that I can guarantee I'll be both up and alert are Sunday night from 8 until 10 p.m. PST, and Saturday morning from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. PST. And I had to do it then. Originally, last week I had mentioned that I was going to be doing it at 9 o'clock today. And then it dawned on me, if I do it at 9 o'clock, I run into an interesting problem. Okay. Because I've got an appointment, I've got an obligation at 11 o'clock that I've got to deal with. So I couldn't be closing down at 11 and still make the appointment. So I figured, no, I'm up. Like, I've been up since 3:30 this morning, probably 3 o'clock. So I've already got 3/4 of my day done. Right. This is why people, when you get up in the morning, and this is one of those similarities. Regardless of the race we're looking at, whether we're talking humans or we're talking some other race, entities, when they're happy, they smile or they laugh or they do their variation of it. When they're upset, they cry, they sulk, they may get mad. When you're hungry, you eat. When you're thirsty, you drink. Some people drink way too much of the wrong stuff. I used to. But we've got to start looking at people from the standpoint of just exactly how many, of what we are looking at. We've got to look at what the similarities are, how people are actually interacting with each other. If you look at the world with the idea that you're going to be dealing with fear, okay, that everything is going to scare you, which is what we have been taught right from the get-go. You're taught to fear. You're taught that everybody has something better than you do. And I'll tell you, everybody does have something better. But the reality is what you have is the important factor. The reality is, and I have actually had to deal with people where they'll go, I desire my life to change, but how do I change it? And I'm not talking, when I'm talking people, I'm not talking just humans. It was funny, I was actually on board a ship one day, and on board a Strazazian ship, which are your reptilians, 7.5 to 8.5 feet tall. Okay, now many of you have seen these people, and yes, some of these people are on Earth already. Okay, if you've ever seen a cigar-shaped UFO that looks like it's got 2 banks of windows in it, okay, that is a Strazazian starship, and they are seen around the world quite regularly. But they're running a ship, and just like running a ship in the military, you have to pay attention to it. Okay, you've got people that are dictating what has to be done in what order. You've got people with individual jobs. Okay, just like on a ship on Earth. Okay, and they still have their own rules. They've still got guidelines and laws that they have to follow. But as I tell everybody, I only follow 3 laws. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. And energy out, energy in. Okay. And it doesn't matter what race you are. I tell the same things to the seagulls. Okay. And yes, I know this sounds like I'm completely whacked, but the reality of it is, from my end, my world is more like science fiction than anything else. Okay. Uh-oh. What do I have here? Did I miss somebody? Nope, I did not. But as the day goes on, we will end up getting a little further into things. Yeah, I was looking at this. I've been live for 17 minutes, but the show's only been open for 6. So I'm looking at this going, I'll see where this goes, right? And I'm certain it will grow as I get a little bit better at it, or a little bit more comfortable, I think is a better way of doing it. But the trick to making everything work, as I mentioned in my vlogs, okay, I came here for one reason, and that was to remind everybody in existence that working together, we can make this a better world, okay, for virtually everybody. But that means that we have to start with ourselves, okay, and I'm no different than you are. Quite frankly, I probably am different in a lot of ways, but the reality from my standpoint is I take a look at the world, and for pity's sakes, if you guys have a question, absolutely ask. But please remember to put it in caps. Okay, because it's easier for me to find. I don't need that up there. I've got this other picture up here that's just distracting me. So I'm just going to minimize it. There we go. Like I said, I tend to do too many things at once. But when we start looking at the different races, it doesn't matter what race. And people have asked me, why don't they show themselves en masse? Well, here's the thing. And see if this fits. Don't just take my word for it. But so many people I talk to, they ask me the same thing. Why don't they just come out and show themselves? Well, ask yourself this. Take a look at the most diverse population you can think of. Okay, you take a look at Canada and the US. We got people from all over the world. And I know England's got the same thing. But people get edgy when they see a human of a different color. Okay, and they start looking at people that are disabled, or have a visible disability, and they start seeing them as, oh, they're not as valuable, they're not as open as you can get. What do we got here? Yeah, Carl has asked, do you find the different races to be from various lands? In some cases, I presume, Carl, that you're referring to the races that are on Earth here, and the answer is yes. There are some that are evolved on Earth, some that come from other worlds. They do tend to settle into different places, but there are a number of underground sites and what have you many that the human military know about, where there are various races of various, from all walks of life that congregate there and meet. If you go to the moon, for instance, it's a phenomenal sight up there. I love the people who tell me, "Oh, nobody's ever gone to the moon." Yeah, they have, and no, it was not all CGI. Okay, but if we take a look, for instance, the Chitauri are a reptilian race. To the best, and to my knowledge, to my memory anyway, they are the only reptilian race that I've run into where they actually have 5 fingers. Okay, but they evolved on Earth. They actually focus out of Africa. Okay, now I've got it. As a matter of fact, that's what I should do, because I'm going to end up with questions, and my memory for names is not any better for races than it is for people. So what I've got here, I've got the monitor that my camera's on, which is here, but then I've got 2 monitors here. Okay, I've got the one that's a little closer for me, so I can see what the questions are coming in, and a third one up here, which is what I'm going to be putting my books up on. By the way, the books I'm referring to are the races of the world, because, well, that's where most of the information comes from, especially the complex ones. So if we open up, go to the pinned. Okay, races of the world, that one. See, I've got races of the world here. Well, here. Yeah, that was right. I've got this one already in print. The other one, the second one I'm working on. But I've got the soft copies. Oops. Pull information out and drop it on the floor. But yeah, the Chitauri are a reptilian race that evolved way back. They evolved on Earth. They've been here forever and a day, but they focus primarily on Africa. Okay. I'm working on getting pictures of these races done. Okay, and as soon as I figure out, and Chad, you'd mentioned something to me a little earlier about okay. That's an excellent question there, Carl. Right now, Races of the World. Okay, this one. Right now, the only place you can get it is directly through me. I am going to be getting it on Amazon. Okay, but I've got to get a couple other things dealt with first. It's in rotation here. Right now, they're working on getting the end of an epic up on Brain. Once it's done, they've got one more in queue that's already been paid for, and then I will be going to the Races of the Worlds. But Races of the Worlds, number one, it's $40 including shipping. Okay, now that's anywhere that I'm certain of. It's anywhere in the continental U.S. and the continental U.S. and Canada. Right, it's $40 including shipping. That can be picked up through me directly. I do take PayPal, or if you're in Canada, I also take direct deposit. Okay, either one. In either event, all of the books you can pick up through me at Intervoice Enterprises, intervoiceenterprises.yahoo.com. That's the email I use for PayPal. Matter of fact, I should probably do that, but what is this? I don't need that one. Should have had this set up, but like I said, I'm still getting things organized and still getting a little bit uncluttered. But let's do this. Shrink that one down. I didn't want to do that, but that's okay. Anyway, here is the email address that I use in order to order books. This is where I have to turn sideways because I quite frankly can't do it the other way. And there we have the email address that accesses PayPal for purchases. or for that matter, anything. I mean, I'm quite willing to take money. I'm not a greedy individual. As a matter of fact, I tend to throw most of my money around elsewhere. But the funny part about it is it's really a strange feeling from my standpoint. It's a very strange feeling going, yeah, we can actually do this. But I got to look at the reality behind the fact I'm 50 now. I'll be 59 in a month. Okay. And by the way, the nice part about this, any book that gets ordered through me directly, I do sign them. Okay. And there's something you don't want to see, but there's a color picture of me on the back so you know who I am. Okay. But it's a very strange thing for me looking at it going, okay, here's what I'm dealing with. Here's, I desire, quite frankly, to get into more of the writing, more of the video, and less of what I call a regular job. But first rule of thumb, if you've got a job that you're not content with, okay, make absolutely certain that you have a replacement before you turn around and quit the job. Now, this I've had to tell people in every walk in life. Okay. It was funny. I ended up meeting a couple of seagulls a couple of years back. I was down on the coast, right, with my kids. And I ended up with pictures of it the whole 9 yards. But when all was said and done, my son looks at me and he goes, "Dad, you were talking to the seagulls." I says, "Well, yeah, I told you I've been doing that for years." He goes, "Yeah, but Dad, I didn't believe you." I can just picture what he goes through. Because all of this information, the races of the worlds, and the other one that I'm working on that I'm just kind of enlarging here, that one there. Races of the worlds, I think that's volume 2. Yep. So we take that up onto the other screen so I can see what's going on. And now I've got both, so if I have to go through them, I can. Because it boils down to, this is something I don't understand with a lot of the so-called YouTubers. I guess in a sense that's what I do. I just don't game. Well, I don't play online games. Okay. For me, it's kind of a strange setup when you have a life that's very twisted. Everybody has their own life. There's no question there. Okay. And everybody's got their specialties and what have you. Personally, I came to the conclusion when I started looking at the various different races, at what was going on, I realized that I don't see a difference between people between humans based on their color, their sex, their political alignment, their social outlook, none of it. And I certainly don't care one way or the other. I don't see anybody that has more money than I've got, which is a staggering amount. That does not make them a better person. Okay. The thing we have to focus on is that regardless of how you got to where you are, we're all in exactly the same place right now. And that is, no matter how you got here, where you are right now is right here, right now. And this is the only time in existence that anything can be changed. Now, when we start looking at the off-worlders, people talk about, oh, we're going to be invaded. I am curious, I always found it fascinating when I was younger. Now I know. But I always found it really entertaining that the first thing people do, there's a strange colored person or a strange ship that I don't understand. They're going to attack us. They're going to invade us. That's just not one of the things that I strive to promote. Because yes, it is possible. But let's be clear. There is the other possibility, which is far more entertaining, which is they're coming to visit. They're coming to find out about us, not to wipe us out. Humans have a tendency of going, I'm going to wipe out or I'm going to control everything. Okay, I'm going to control everything. I don't understand you, so I'm going to take over your area. Okay. Now, the thing is, this little book here, I talk about different races and what have you. This is science fiction, science fantasy. But this is one of those weird tasks that started. I was in grade 10 when I started writing this one. Okay. The first book I ever actually put out, that I actually ever printed, right there. And I just got a new shipment of these. The first one I ever actually printed was this one. It was done with a different cover. Okay, but that's Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams. And that really boiled down to a letter to myself that said, okay, this is how I go about doing it. Okay, this is the way my world is working. And it took my really coming to terms with the fact that the only person in existence, and it's sad to say for those of you that go this direction, even God himself will not make you successful. God himself or herself, or however you want to phrase it, gave you free will, freedom of choice. It is up to you to make it happen. And I came to the understanding that with these books, I made one minor change. I've got the other stack. You can actually see it. There's a box up over here. That's the newest shipment that I just brought in. So because I was running low on them. I think this was my last copy. But I've got another stack over there. Okay, I just picked up the other day. But you're the only one that can actually make your life successful. You can talk to anybody you desire. Okay, I am certainly not the best. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that have far more experience and far more, shall we say, I don't know, pizzazz. They're much more adept at working on these things. I mean, the fact that I'm working on it at all has taken a lot of work from a lot of people. But you've got to get an idea in your head as to whether or not you're content. Okay, I can happily say myself, I've reached a point where I've got friends. When I talk about friends in high places, this is the neat part. Okay, now I showed you that book. I'm going to get the other one here. This is the second one in print. Okay, The End of an Epoch. This is the sequel to the first one, but when people buy this book, now the Races of the Worlds, what that is it's a reference manual. Okay, and it simply shows the data. I mean, I'm enhancing it now. Okay, but it shows the grassroots data, if you will. The Carl has gone. The dice for the games. I can find. Well, okay. I play Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, and I should have had these here, but that's okay. I've got these ones here. Now, Dungeons and Dragons has an interesting setup. People talk about it being a bad thing. When I first started playing it, I started playing it in 1976, roughly the first weekend of June of 1976. I got into playing Dungeons and Dragons, and a lot of people go, "Oh, that's a terrible game." But I'll tell you, it was that game that enabled me to actually learn to socialize. Now, dice themselves, and I should look into this on the other side of it, but with the Elder Chronicles, okay, I've actually, because there is a set of gamers, now understand, I should try that again. I should probably think before I speak. The Elder Chronicles, okay, I'm a gamer. I wrote the book with gamers in mind, and to that end, in the middle of the world falling apart, I've actually got a group of gamers, as in people that play Dungeons and Dragons, Aftermath, Villains and Vigilantes, Warhammer. They've got a number of other ones. This particular one is the chest, and these are custom made. And I will tell you, they are pricey, but the dice you're talking about can be found in any game shop. I've got friends all over the place that play Dungeons and Dragons all over the world. Okay, you just have to look around. I cannot tell you what stores, because frankly, I barely remember the store I work with. But this is the chest that was actually made for the Elderbachian Chronicles set. That's the inside of the box. Okay, but the dice you're talking about there, Carl, is these ones here, and each set that I've got here. Now, these themselves, they are extremely pricey. Okay, and I got them ahead of time because, well, I desired to. But these are the dice he's talking about. That's a 20-sided die. Okay, also known as, if I recall correctly, that would be a dodecahedron. But you have your standard size die, your standard dice that are just simply they're just simply 6-sided dice. And then you've got your 8-sided. These are just simply this is simply the dice we use for gaming on a tabletop. Now, I saw a post the other day, there's nothing worse than stepping on a Lego. Okay, well, I got news for you. Try stepping on this thing. Okay, and see just how much happier you are. I'll tell you from practical experience. Now, these are made out of metal. You can get dice like these that are plastic. Okay. I mean, dice come all over the place. That's a 10-sided die. Okay. And we get 2 of those in each set because together they make a percentile. Right? All of these come in one set. Okay. Especially if we're looking at the set for the Elderbachian Chronicles. But the thing I was getting at with the Elderbachian Chronicles to start with is we've got the races of the worlds that gives you the black and white. These are the races. This is their society, the structure, that sort of thing. But many of the races that you run into in Races of the Worlds are being incorporated and introduced. Their personalities, their character, and their tendencies in a social environment are being shown as well. Now, if you look on this one, okay, this chap right here, this is just a standard human. That is the lead character. That's Jeremiah Wallstrand. Okay, but this here is the actual size, and that is the actual weapon, comparatively, of a Srazazian. This should put it somewhat in perspective. Okay, so this is something else I'm doing because I cross over a lot of things. When I mentioned that everything is connected, okay, I wasn't kidding. They really are connected. In my case, I have a tendency of working on multiple projects, which is where I've got different little figures like this. Okay, this one I only just picked up, so it's not painted yet. But I'm picking up figures that actually represent the characters in the book, so I can get a little bit more of a visual on them. I've got figures stuck all over the house right now. What? Or more to the point, all over the office. The trick is to pick a project that you're content with. Okay, take a look at your life, and like I said, this is an issue of no matter where you're from, people worry so much about the differences in each other. Okay, but think about the similarities, and when we do that, when we start looking at the similarities and start living by karmic law, okay, and that simply means if you desire to be treated nicely, treat people nicely. That's just the way it has to be. Well, I guess technically it doesn't have to be that way, but it does work far better in my eyes. It's funny, I went to a second, like I've got a bank, obviously, but I went to another bank, right, and turned around. I was going to open an account there, and they literally told me, well, we can't open a bank account for you. We can't take your money unless you're going to give us all of your business. They literally wanted me to take all of my checking, all of my insurance, all of my, everything, my savings, RFPs, and put it all in their bank, or they weren't going to open a bank account for me. And I'm thinking, this is absolutely bizarre. Okay. If you're working in a group and you've got a list of jobs to do. Nightmare, how you doing? Welcome. And what did I just do? Glad you made it. The reality is they wanted it all. And I'm thinking, I've got 30 years with the bank I deal with. Why would I possibly take all of my business from them just to put it in the hands of somebody that is clearly more greedy than helpful? This is why I tell people, I'm not here to prove to people that what I've seen is real. Okay. I'm simply going, this is what I've seen. And as some of you have found out, some of what I've seen makes a whole lot more sense if you know somebody that is out there that has actually gone through it. I was talking to somebody one day. It was funny when I ran into one person, but they talk about these things that are so weird. I remember being downtown in downtown Kelowna here, sitting on a deck, and there was a real estate agent around. I looked at him. I says, because I was looking at something in the sky, and I says, what is that? And I just pointed at it, and the guy looks up, and he goes, well, I see it. I says, for me, that's a real bonus, because a lot of the things I see, like if you take a look, I don't know if your eyes work that way, but more often than not, sitting up right, there's a lighthouse up here. That's what that little blue thing up there is. More often than not, I've got a little sprite by the name of Mira that sits up there. And she'll fly around, but she tends to stay. You can see the energy of her. Okay. And there's 3 other people that wander around in here. So if you're seeing something that looks like there's extra energy in here, don't be surprised. They're just another type of entity. I just don't separate them and say, oh, they're different, or, they're bad people. Okay. But so many people look at the fact that, they look at the fact that somebody looks different or thinks differently. Therefore, they're a bad person. Okay. And this is something we have to understand, especially in today's world. It's amazing the number of things that we don't know about this world. And yet people are going, let's go colonize another planet. Right? It's a cute thought, but I think in this case, if they try colonizing Mars, they may run into a snag. Mars is already occupied. I think that's when they call it invading. But, I might be wrong on that. It depends on how people look at it. But you really, like, so many people go, well, there's all these different races that people talk about. I want to meet one. And the reality is that many of the times people go, I really want to meet somebody, meet one of these races. They don't know what they're asking. Okay. One thing that I have found is, humans, and this is Gene Roddenberry way back in 67, I think it was 67 or it was late 66, when he was first putting Star Trek together. He made a comment, and I'm paraphrasing. Okay, but he made a comment that said the biggest problem with meeting other races is there is no functional communication, there's no functional backline to them. They don't have a common cultural point. Okay, like for instance, okay, I've got this. Okay, now this is coffee, but if I hold this out to you and I go here, you may see, you'll see me reach forward. Here you go. Am I saying, here, try this? Am I saying it's a drink? Am I telling you what color the cup is? Am I threatening you, or am I trying to be nice? All of these are possibilities. Okay. Now, I'll give you an obvious example. Okay, and I don't recall the name offhand. But if you're in an aggressive situation, a normal way for humans to go, I don't want to fight, is to put their hands up like this, right? You just put your hands up, spread them open, show that your hands are free. this is a sign of, of relax, I'm not doing anything. I know of one race in particular where if they hold their hand up like this, step back. This is not them saying I'm going to relax, I'm going to talk to you. This is them saying I'm going to attack, because they bring their hands up like this and then they'll close their hand. All of a sudden, they'll close their hand. As they do that, there's a spike in here that will unfold. Right. So what they're doing is they close their hand and all of a sudden they're now armed and they've got this strike. It's not a case of I'm not going to deal with it. Okay. You look at another race, a normal way for people to shake hands. Okay. And I gotta look up that name just on principle so I can give you the right one. This is not the Spear Knocked In. It is, I'm just going to scroll down here and see and find out which one it was. I'm trying to remember what the heck it was called. But I'll find that afterwards. But it's written down. What they boil down to, okay, is it's not in there, it's in this one. Anyway, when they reach out to shake your hand, for humans, this is a good thing. It's a normal way of meeting somebody and saying hi, as it were. But the problem with it is there's one race in particular that what they do is they'll reach out, they'll grab your hand, and their stomach will actually unfold from their forearm and envelop your hand, much like the way a clam eats. Okay, or much of the way a starfish eats. And they will literally envelop your hand, and while they're holding on to you, they will dissolve your hand. It's called dinner. They're not saying hi. They're not trying to greet you. They're trying to eat you, which sounds similar, but not always the nicest way. Wonder if I've just got to scroll down and see what I can find. It would be nice if I could figure out how things work in a hurry, but that is not the way this works. Where are we looking at? No, that's the Gran. Trying to remember which race it was, but the reality of it is that there are so many people that are looking at things in a very strange fashion. It's like, well, everybody's going to be happy. Well, no, they're not. And they're not all friendly. Now, don't get me wrong. There are friendly people in every race. Okay. Just like with humans, there are people of every color. They're really nice people. One of the things I found that was just bizarre was when I was living in the bar, I used to drink a 26er a night, and I wouldn't even think about it. Right. But I had one guy at the time in Kelowna. We had very few black people here, very few. But every summer you'd end up with the BC Lions showing up in town. And I'll tell you, when you're at the bar and it's all white people, and all of a sudden you end up with these huge black people walk in, right? And I'm not going to use the term that was used, but a guy come up to me and pointed to the biggest linebacker I'd ever seen. And rest assured, I haven't seen that many, in all fairness. But the biggest man I'd ever run into. Okay, now Carl is asking, can I ask about the software, the Windows? Do you have this option like myself? I use myself, try English. Myself, I use Windows 10. Actually, I think I'm using Windows 11 now. Okay, and I know there's a way to move stuff around, but technology and I have had arguments for years. But no, I was watching this. And these guys came in, and this one white guy looks at me and he goes, "Why don't you go over there, over to that huge, big black linebacker?" Why don't you go over there and insult him? And I just looked at the guy, and of course, he told me what to call the guy. And I looked at this chap, and I went, well, I was thinking of living through the night. I'm not, the way I figure it, why insult somebody just because just because they're different? Now, there are many people that talk about, that do this brilliant idea. They go, and by the way, they're not the only ones. Okay. But they're not the only race, but they look at it and go, I'm going to have a drink because it helps me calm down. The sad reality is it really doesn't. Now, I'm no medical doctor, but alcohol itself, the only people I've ever seen it calm down are Johnny Fever from way back in the 70s. There was a show called WKRP in Cincinnati. The drunker he got, the better his reactions got. Okay. But aside from him, okay, and obviously he was on a sitcom. Some of you may well remember said sitcom. But the only race I've ever run into where alcohol actually helps calm them down is, oddly enough, the Dwarvish race. And they are real. Okay, and we are talking that Dwarvish race. As a matter of fact, these guys here, again, like I said, I did this with a very specific purpose in mind. Okay, you can't see him very well, but on the front cover, where is it here? Right here. The guy holding the axe there, that is the size of the axe that's a dwarf right there. And that is the size of his axe. That chap has the funny thing is, many of the people, and I mentioned this quite directly, that many of the characters that I've put in these books, either they are based on on characters that people build, or they're based on individuals themselves. Okay. And many of the people I run into, like for instance, that dwarf I just showed you, he is a dwarf that is literally billions of years old. Okay, bear in mind, in all fairness, only about 4, I think. Okay, because the first couple of billion years that Earth was around, there weren't people living on it. Okay, and the dwarves were not the first ones that got here. Your dwarves, your elves, your sprites, the pixies, leprechauns, they are all in what I call ancient races. They all evolved on Earth. Okay, the whole lot of them did. Even when you start taking a look at these mythological creatures, okay, or people, when you start looking at dragons, about, I think it's close to 10 years back now, they found in England, my understanding, at least the report stated, that they had found the skeleton of a little dragon. Now, it was only a little guy, might have been 3 feet long, but it had a dual nasal cavity, where one side was completely charred out, okay, and the other one wasn't. Now, the thing is, if you know anything about fire and chemical, there are chemical mixtures that you can put together, okay, to cause that kind of a reaction. They just did it naturally. But this is something that the different races this is why I say every individual is an individual unto itself. Well, Lawrence is asking, how long do the ancient races live? That depends on the race. Okay. The Spirinoctin, the Spirinoctin is not in this one. It's in the other one. Just going to double check because they don't live very long at all. Okay. When you take a look at the Elvish race, which is an ancient race, the original ones, the few of them that are left, are still here. They arrived right after the Earth was built. Okay. They are the ones that created. They were created first. Okay. Then they are the ones that built the dwarves. Okay, and they built the dwarves because they were having problems. There was a war going on between the elves. Okay, like I said, humans are not the only ones that are war torn. They are not. They are not the inventors of war. This conflict has been going on for years. I'm hoping that mankind will get back to where they did. Something that very few races have done is actually got to a point of total peace and then had it destroyed and then destroyed it themselves by accident. But mankind used to have a world. There used to be on this planet, on Earth, roughly 10 billion humans. Okay. Now they got along. There was no war. There was no greed. There was no sickness. I mean, everything worked like an absolute charm, and it certainly wasn't famine. Right? There was envy, but we had a cooperative society. And it is my hope and my drive that with your help, I can actually guide people back to that point. Now, I see a lot of people that come up and they say, "Oh, I'm here to talk about how things are happening." And I thought there was one in particular, and I'm not going to use names. I use names that I have direct permission to use. But there's one in particular I thought they had their act together. And then all of a sudden, their whole take shifted. And they're talking about these races coming in and attacking Earth. Okay. Mankind thrives. Well, in all fairness, it really doesn't. But it focuses on fear so much. And even many of the other races, it's like, if you take a look at the off-worlders, or let's try the ancient races you were talking about, when you're looking at dwarves, they quite often will live 300, 400, 500 years. But the problem is that they live underground, which means you don't see them very often. Okay. But they're a wonderful race of people. Your elves will live for a couple of centuries. Or not a couple of centuries, a couple of millennia. Okay. The originals are still alive, some of them. But the newer ones have, as they reproduced, okay, the lifespans got a little shorter. And of course, as people, and it's not just the humans that have done the pollution. Okay. Other races have made their mistakes as well. It's not just this rendition of mankind. Okay. But what happens is, they have varying lifespans. Much like a dog will live, if you get a dog living 15 years, this is a good thing. Okay. I am looking for a spear knocked in because that I'm just hoping it's got a. There we are. That was the one I was talking about before. I'm just calling up this one, and it is in volume 2. Where is? Sure. Now I can't spell. There. Okay. Yep. Bingo. The race that I was talking about a little earlier, whose stomach folds out of their arm. Okay. That stomach, okay, wraps around. That is a Fuente-Ren. Okay. They're an interesting race, pretty sociable, but they will eat you while you're alive. So I mean, everybody has their drawbacks. I wonder if I have that in this one. Not on that one. Let's see if because I'm upgrading these while I'm going along. Okay, and I do apologize for the fact that I do apologize that this doesn't run as smooth as I'd like. Working on that, but still getting the handle on it, and eventually it'll get smoother. Where are we here? Go right down here. Of course, we're looking in the wrong book. Spear knocked in. That is in volume 1. That's where my problem is. Tell you, some days I get myself really badly confused. So we go into there. Not the Cirzazians, those are fun people. Go up one here. I'm just looking to see if I've actually got the age of these specified. Okay, well, I've looked around enough for that. Anyway, the reality behind it, now this has gone really sideways. I'm going to have to be more organized for tomorrow morning. Okay, this is one of the drawbacks of trying to track too many things. I have no idea how some of these people deal with it. But people have to realize that everybody comes to the table with some sort of a plus. Okay, when you can have like Arboreans, and this is why I mentioned at the beginning of the video, and at the beginning of today, I mentioned a video I'd seen that showed trees literally moving, not a few inches a year. I saw videos showing them literally running faster than a man can run through the woods. And you know it's a tree because you're looking at the thing moving. Okay. And it didn't just go, I mean, I swear the one I was looking at was confused. Because he goes running away, right, and he goes rushing across the forest. And then all of a sudden turns around and rushes back. And we're talking about going, based on the size of the appearance of the trees, we're talking these things running 50, 60 yards while in one video. Now, I do not claim to have video proof of anything. And I know that videos can be modified. But you do have to wonder what these guys were up to. But those are Arboreans. Okay. Easiest way to explain an Arborean is they happen to look, most of them look like trees. Okay. There are shrubs and herbs that fall into the same thing. It's the same as there are tall people. There are tall humans and short humans. Okay. But when you're looking at it, they still go through, people, ancient races still go through the same series of stages in life. From child to teenager to adult to senior. I mean, and there's a lot of subsets in there. But they go through the same ideas. The one thing, the one caution with some of these races is when you're looking, for instance, humans shake hands to greet each other. Okay. Elves have a slightly different way of dealing with it. Usually they do it from a long distance, and many of them still they'll use a similar way. But if you run into a dwarf, when they meet you face to face, do not shake hands their way. It's just a bad idea. Because they will literally throw their head back and drive their forehead into yours in order to say hi. Okay, this is just their way of saying hi. Unfortunately, humans' cranial setup is just not equipped to handle it for the most part. Okay, but again, we have the issue. They have their own greetings. There is a rule of thumb with some of these races. Okay, and I know, like, there's a lot of motorcycle enthusiasts out there, or quite frankly, bikers. But the thing is, people take a look at bikers and they go, oh, they're such a bad group of people. They've got this terrible past. Well, they do. If you go back into the 50s and 60s, many bike gangs evolved that were absolutely violent. But go back a few more years. Okay, go back to the Scottish clans. And they were violent as well. So humans are violent across the board. Everybody has violent tendencies. It's part of having decent tendencies. Okay, you cannot be really nice, have a really positive side if you don't have a really dark one to know what it is. And then, of course, you got that third point, which is everything in the middle. And it's mankind's ability and all sentient creatures' ability to differentiate between, am I going to do something? Am I going to make this work? Or am I going to do something volatile? Okay. Carl, give me half a second because I got to just double check one thing. Depends on where you are. Now, if I recall correctly, you're over in England, are you not, Carl? There we are. No, that is not what I need. I need Canadian to pound. Just calling it up on the internet, because I think you're over in England. If you are, I just need. Okay, perfect. Give me half a second to find out exactly what it is from Canada to England. The $40, like the book itself, is $40. It's $40 for the book, and then we've got shipping. That much I can tell you right off the bat. But give me 10 seconds. Okay, now on the internet, if you're buying it through PayPal, I think on PayPal it's only they've got listed as literally $40. Okay, I wonder if I go into PayPal here. Okay. Now if we go 40. What the heck was I? That cannot be right. Let me see if I go on to, because I know it's on authorhouse.com, and it's on authorhouse.com, and it's on Amazon. I'm just calling it up here and seeing what we got here. Let's go to the bookstore and see. And of course, it doesn't want to get me into it. There we are. Sort of. Nope. Guess I have to actually get in. I should have been in here, but. Okay, now I found it. Let us try that. That's because I'm trying to go into Author House. That's why. There we are. Okay, at authorhouse.com, they sell it at $28.99 American. Okay, that's for The Birth of the Wolfpack. Because the Elderbachian Chronicles are the only ones available on Amazon at this point. Where the heck am I looking for here? I just love being lost. That cannot be right. Okay, if I'm correct, and I'll have to double check. I'll be heading out after this today as soon as I get done the video. Oh, okay. You've got the Wolfpack. Okay. The other one that is out, the sequel to the Wolfpack, is The End of an Epoch. And it too is available from Amazon and from Author House. Let's just see if we can find it here. Slowly but surely, I'm getting things worked out. We go to Amazon. No, I don't want to be in that at this point. Way too much dead air here. I should have one of these days I'll be a lot faster at doing this. Right. But for the moment, fast is not necessarily my strong suit, not when it comes to computers. Hopefully I did that right. Of course not. Okay, and where the heck is Amazon? I don't want the sign in. But I know it's available. That's the easy part. And I can have you watch me fumble around there all I want. Oh, okay. Well, I will tell you, this is now the shipping. I have no idea, but for the price that it's going to run. Okay. These little boxes. Okay. And I've only got a few of them left. Yeah, I've only got 5 of them left, I think. Because this particular box isn't going anywhere. Okay, now understand, these particular boxes that I've got out right now are limited edition, as in there were only 10 of them made. Okay, but for that set, for those dice, you're looking at, and you're not going to like this one in all likelihood. Those dice, because of the markup and because of the cost, they are custom made. Okay, and literally where we got the dice, they're simply only available with these ones. Okay, I'm selling the boxes themselves at $500 Canadian. Okay, but and because of what it is, I'm just simply put that price on it, and then that will include the shipping. Since I'm not a retail outlet, I don't have this neat little problem of having to charge taxes and what have you, including the shipping. I've only got, I think, 5 of them left now. Okay, because they are a numbered set. Okay, but for that set of dice that I showed you there, they're $500 for that set. I will be getting others out that will not be as limited edition. Okay, and I might adjust that price. But for you, Carl, being as you're the first one that's asked about them, okay, I will absolutely, for you personally, I will absolutely sell it to you, ship it to you for the 500 Canadian. Now, yes, that is expensive, but these are custom-made boxes. Okay. I try and keep things down to a minimal, keep the cost down. But sometimes the cost is just incredibly difficult to deal with. You would not believe how much these things actually cost to make custom work. But the guy that's doing them is the same guy that I got to do. He's a local here. He's the same guy that I got to make my own cane with so I could walk. I will be, by the way, here's a nice little part where it comes to the way I write the books. Okay. And I've literally had to talk to some of the off-worlders and some of the ancient races in order to get it straight. Like that picture that I've got of Kulak, who is the one on the front page here. That's a Strazazian here. Okay, that's Kulak. Okay, I literally had to talk to him and go, okay, this is what I'm planning on doing. Do you have a problem with it? I'm just doing the artwork of it. And he goes, no, I don't have it. Well, he didn't really understand it to start with because they don't exactly have written books the way we do. Okay, they deal in a whole different variety of communication lines. That's just the reality behind it. Whoop, that is not what I wanted. Don't tell me I moved out of it. There we are. Okay. Now we are, I'm looking at the world here from a very simple standpoint. All of these things are tied. Okay. All of these things are interconnected. And when we realize that working together, we can actually make this happen, we can start looking at the different races. You may well have seen some of them walking around. Okay. But we got to understand that humans come in multiple colors, multiple personality types. Okay. And Raven has just caught us, has just joined us. Welcome, Raven. These people are just other people. Oh, okay, Carl, that one is called Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams. That's this one here. And that is only $20 shipped. Okay, shipped in your hand. And quite frankly, in this case, I could have it out today if I had the money. If it's paid for, it'll go out right away. I think if the post office is open. Better correct that. This is Easter weekend. But this book itself, Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams, that is the backbone of how I managed to get my life turned around, get the energy running, and get myself up and motivated in order to actually get all of this happening. If you take a look up here, up on the shelf here, those books, okay, I used to have them jammed solid with a whole pile of other junk at the same time. Okay, I take those shelves that you see and there would be no room on them. They'd be stacked top to bottom. Now, by following the steps in this, the biggest challenge that anybody has, the first thing you got to come across is decide, are you going to change? Like, are you changing for you? This is why I say take a look in your heart and ask yourself, are you happy with you the way you are? Okay, it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. It's just the way, you just have to come to that conclusion. This is why I said that book, that sign, I am worth it, is so important. Okay, I wonder if it's not readily available, so that's okay. Can't quite reach everything in my house right now, which is understandable. I mean, let's face it, I've only got arms that are so long. But that book, Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams, that was my way of looking at it, going, what steps did I need to do? I wrote it in such a way that they're very short chapters. If you really feel you need a refresher on it, read the chapter again. I mean, if you take a look at it, right, and bear in mind, this is information based on, I wrote this based on over 80,000 clients, about 60,000 of which were personal relationships. But it's a tiny little book, as you can tell. Okay. But it packs in, well, in this case, 59 years of experience. Okay, thank you very much, Carl. Carl has just stated he's just purchased one of these, and here we go. Here, I'm going to stand up for half a second. Oh, it's not open right now, but I will get that signed. I've got to take off to the post office as soon as I get out. Now, I don't know if I'll be able to get it out today because I don't know, being Easter weekend, I doubt very much that the post office is open. If it is not, then it'll be shipped on Tuesday, and I'll let you know directly that it's on its way. Okay, because I just picked up, that's what that what that box behind me is. Over there. That box over there, that is the newest selection of these. But the reason I wrote it that way is so that people could have it handy and go, okay, how do I make this change? Well, the first trick is literally accepting the fact that you desire to change for you. And I've turned this over. I've actually had this book in print in various forms for probably 20 years now. But it's only been in the last little while that I started saying, okay, enough is enough. It's time to start selling it. It's time to start marketing properly. And rest assured, marketing is not my strong suit. But with that in mind, here's a neat little kicker for you. And I'm not going to sell this little piece of information. I figured out the number one, well, I'll put it to you this way and give you a moment and give those of you in the chat room a moment to answer. What is the number one, bar none, best method of advertising? Bar none, anywhere in the world. Okay, I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to come up with that answer. Okay. But I put the book together because it's the simple steps. I'm a pretty simple individual. I prefer things to be really simple. Raven, well done. And we have a winner. Word of mouth. Okay, is absolutely bar none the best method. Now, here's another one for you. And I'll ask it directed at Raven, but anybody answer. Where that comes in. Okay, thank you very much, Carl. Where the word of mouth comes in. We know advertising costs money. We know people pay a fortune for advertising. But have you ever run into anybody that actually pays advertising for word of mouth? Okay. Now, that's really convenient as far as, and I've got to keep an eye on the different denominations at this point. But word of mouth is without a shadow of a doubt the best method, no matter what anybody says. And the way it works is this. Where, the basic average is if you get really good service from somebody, you'll tell a couple of people. I'm talking averages. But if you get really bad service from somebody, right, you'll literally tell 10 people. So you can see why being honest with people is so important. Okay. It's absolutely critical. Now, where it comes to the thing with the way I wrote believe in yourself and follow your dreams. The way I wrote it was I went, here's what you've got to do, and here is a primary reason of why you don't desire to do it. Okay, because the reality behind it is when you're looking at, oh, absolutely, Carl, in every book that gets ordered through me, okay, every one of them, if they're ordered directly through me, are signed. I absolutely make certain of that. It's why the way I figure it sometimes costs a little more to buy direct. But the reality is, by buying direct, it will be a signed copy. And the only other way I can sign them is if people end up running into me in person, which eventually will happen. But since I don't leave my house much, not very easy. But yeah, it will absolutely be there. Now, Raven, here's the neat part. I actually figured out an algorithm years ago that I use myself. Okay, I figured out how to track word of mouth advertising. And I'm not going to go into the long range of it. That makes sense. I should probably do that at some point. But, I've always been a simple individual. Raven was just saying she's had people ask her to like her in the page on Facebook. Right. And I've had people ask me to like their page. The reason I don't is not that I don't want people liking my page. Okay. It's a question of I figure if they like my page, they'll like it. Right. This is what I mean by I'm not great with the marketing side of things. Okay. Also not great with the sun shining directly in my eyes. But I guess I can cure that in just half a second here. This part is just because of the fact I can't see any further. Welcome to spring. There we go. Now I can see. Sorry about that. That's where the window is. Anyway, I've had people ask as well. The nice little part, with regards to any of the books, any of the dice, anything that I market. Okay. I figured out a way to track where it comes from. And subsequently, I figured out, and I've got this all done on a chart. Way too complicated to explain here. But I figured out how to track it so that if somebody buys a book and they refer that person and refer that book and say, look, go get a book from Keith, I actually know who has referred it. And the person that did the referring, I found a way to actually pay them for it. Okay. Now, I don't know exactly all the mechanics behind how to explain that side of it, which is why I've never tried marketing it. Besides, from my standpoint, it works great from an advertising standpoint. If people like it, they'll talk about it. If they don't like it, they won't talk about it. Okay, that's a terrible picture of me. I'm just looking at what I showed up here. Well, now you know what my hip looks like, but that's what I get for having to close the blind so I can actually see. Note for self tomorrow. Make certain when I'm going, well, of course, at night it won't matter. Right. But I figured out how to actually track it because I figure the reality of it is this. Okay. Now, Carl, this applies directly to you. Okay. I'll be sending this out in the next few days as soon as the post office lets me. It will be a signed copy. Okay. It will absolutely be a signed copy. But here's the thing. I've worked out an algorithm, and when I worked it out, I thought the algorithm was way too easy. So I took it to a chap that knew algorithms, that knew computer algorithms. And I asked him, find me the flaw. Well, he says there isn't one. I didn't agree with him, so I took it to a mathematician and got the same answer. So the algorithm works without me actually losing money. But what it boils down to is if you refer the book to refer any one of the things I'm doing that I'm charging money for, okay, or an investment for. And I personally consider this one literally an investment because this can and has, in literally hundreds of cases, changed people's way of handling things in order to get ahead. Okay, now that's an investment in self. But I figured out a way to actually work it out. I took it to get the algorithm done. I found out what the flaw was, but it wasn't in the algorithm. It was in the implementation. I found out a way, regardless of what business, I can actually modify it and show people how to make better money with minimal cost to themselves just by modifying their own business. Okay. One of the tricks I found, because I used to work in hospitality, I used to work in restaurants, and I came across a person that had a brilliant idea. Okay. And what they did was they said, okay, everybody that has, everybody, we've got all these items on the menu. The first person to sell every one of each of these items, okay, gets a bonus of X dollars. Okay. Getting people to do something because they're making some sort of something back from it. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that if they like something, they'll just simply go, there it is. Oh, perfect. Some people will simply tell people, gee, I had this great experience, I found this great book or this great song, go and listen to it, sort of thing. Okay. But I found something else where it came to restaurants specifically. If you go to a restaurant and you have good service, and this applies to everywhere I've ever been in the universe, quite literally. If you have good service, you tell a couple of people. If you have bad service, you tell a whole bunch more people. But I thought to myself, now what happens? Because Costco and a lot of the co-ops have brilliant ideas, right? They end up reimbursing you or sending you back. They literally send you back money in the form of in-store. In many cases, Costco I think does cash. Okay, but most stores they will say they've got point cards and what have you. And they say if you buy something, we'll give you a little bit of money back. Then you get the places like Costco that if you refer somebody, you'll get a little bit of a percentage back. Now, before you jump on the idea that this is pyramid, everything in existence is pyramid. And besides that, I did a whole lot of research to make sure I didn't run into that problem. This is simply my way of tracking how I deal with advertising, because I've spent money on proper advertising companies, right? And they have done absolutely nothing. Okay, they've done nothing for me. Cost a lot of money, didn't get any benefit from it. Okay, word of mouth, on the other hand, if you do things properly, if you're running a business, like for instance, if you're running a restaurant, it's obvious. If you've got good food and good service, people will come back. They'll talk to other people. They'll bring their friends. But where Costco and many of these other companies that have points and what have you come in is if you refer from somebody, you get a one-time bonus. Okay, for bringing that person in. Well, what I did was I figured, why should I only get a 1-point bonus? Why should the person only get 1 point? The reality is, in this case, I've just sold Carl's just bought the one. Okay. Now, if Carl sends somebody to me, okay, and says, here's a book, I like the way it is, here's where you can get it. Make sure they let me know that you're the one that sent them. Okay, that would be really appreciated. Because what happens is I'll keep it in a file of mine. And then let's say you get a couple of people sending in. I've got an algorithm worked out, and it's not much to start with. It really isn't. Okay. But when it builds to a certain point down the road, and it might be a couple of months because it depends on how fast people buy, I figure I wouldn't make those 2 sales if Carl didn't tell somebody. Okay. But here's where the real kicker came in. Okay. Down the road, those 2 people that I've tracked, and I know Carl sent them to me. Okay. Those 2 people turn around and tell a couple of other people. And now down the road, a few months, we've got 6 or 7 people that I would have never seen. They'd have never seen the book. They'd have never known about it if Carl hadn't opened his mouth and said, hey, look, this is what I picked up. This is how it's worked for me. If Carl hasn't done that, I would never get to those other dozen people. So the income that they made, that they generate, that I end up generating because of those sales, in this case, Carl is directly responsible for. This is how, and I've got a whole way of tracking it. Okay, it took me, well, it was funny. I woke up in the morning and figured it out. But it applies to every business. Okay, if you're a shipping company, okay, you've got people that are working for you, and they are doing their job. Now, yes, they're getting paid a wage. Absolutely. And whatever the wage is, make sure they can live on it. Whatever you do, make sure they can live on it or they will leave. But it's, in a manner of speaking, I mean, what I'll do there, and this is actually what I do, Carl, is I actually send a couple of business cards with me, with the book, because that way, well, let's face it, it's easier. Okay. And since I haven't changed my post box since I opened my business. So it's been 15 years now that I've had the same both post box. And I'm not planning to get rid of it for exactly that reason. But if the person turns around and, comes back, if you go and you get them doing the job and you look at literal net profit sharing, not profit sharing, your company has to make an income. You've got to make a profit. That's the important factor. Because these people that go, oh, I'm going into business, I'm running a nonprofit business. I'll tell you right now, I'm never going to open a nonprofit business. If I'm going into business, if I'm doing something and I'm going to call it a business, the idea is to get ahead. The definition of an entrepreneur that I heard best was literally an entrepreneur is somebody willing to work 16 hours a day for someone, for themselves, so they don't have to work 8 hours a day for somebody else. Okay. That's just the way that life works. But if you turn around and look at your income and you go, I'm going to look at my net profit sharing. Okay. Figure out what you require. Okay. In my case, it costs very little to run the business because I run it out of my own home. But there's always an overhead that you look at. Okay, so apply that overhead. And do not forget, when you're working that out, make certain that you pick a wage that you can live on. Okay, now you base it not on the hours that you're going to put in, but on how much per hour you figure you should be making. That's where you put your overhead at. Now, I am not a business, I guess I am a business advisor. I don't tell you the legalities behind it. Okay, that's going to work out you can do that. Carl's going, I'm wanting to set up my business with selling my artwork. I'm going to show you an interesting little thing here, Carl, because we hadn't quite got to that. But this is a direct side effect. Now, I'm going to give you a choice. They're both 20. That's believe in yourself and follow your dreams. That's the one we were just talking about. What we hadn't gotten to talking about, and I hadn't intended on it, is this one, which is believe in your business and follow your dreams. Okay. And again, it's the brass tacks of getting a business started. Okay. Now you've got to this is to be used in tandem with other things. With whatever businesses you've already looked at. Okay, these are just simple, I heard one person tell me when they looked at them that it wasn't so much that it had a whole pile of incredible information, but this one person told me in particular, they looked at me and they went, that book made all the rest of them make sense. Now, I haven't read all the rest of them. I've read a few books, but I'm a terrible read. I just don't read a lot. I don't research a lot. But this one here, Carl, from your standpoint, that's believe in your business. And it does the exact same thing the other one does. But it's focusing on what you've got to look at where it comes to business. Okay. And like I mentioned, when you're looking at setting anything in motion, if you desire to do any sort of a project, you're going to, in all likelihood, require extra people to help. And if you look at and pay them their going wage, there's an old saying, very old saying, that goes, an honest day's pay for an honest day's work. Well, I had a client years ago that was, oh, this one as well. This one is, but yeah, believe in your business and follow your dreams is also $20 in your hand. Okay, that's including the postage and the shipping and all of it. Okay, I was talking to a client. They called me up one day. They were running a restaurant, and they were losing staff. They were losing customers. And I said, well, okay, the customers, you got to get a cook that can work. But their staff was quitting. And I said, well, how much are you paying them? And the guy goes, well, I'm paying them X dollars, which was, by the way, about half of what they required in order to live, in order to just make ends meet. I says, well, I looked at it and went, well, double their wage. He goes, well, they get tips. I says, never, ever, ever, when you're running a restaurant, do you ever make your waiter or your waitress or any of your staff rely on tips. You pay them their wages. The tips are the customer's way of telling that specific person they're doing a good job. Okay. That is literally the way that works. Okay. And so I looked at him and I says, double their wage. Because like I said, he was paying them less than what they could afford to live on. Now, my recommendation where it comes to that is figure out what the going rate, what the cost of living in your area is. Okay. You start there. If you're not paying, you work out for full-time staff, you go, okay, this is what costs to live, but how much do they need to get paid? How much per hour do they need to get paid to make ends meet? Based on the simple things, as in rent, utilities, just to keep a roof over their head, not necessarily their entertainment. Okay, figure that out and work out the wage for only 30 hours work a week. Okay, if you're paying them enough, they won't go looking for another. If you pay them properly and treat them properly, they won't go looking for another place to work. So you'll be able to handle the staff. You'll be able to keep them. But again, you pay them their wage, and we'll try English. We'll swap to Swahili. English isn't working. There is this neat little problem where if you start sharing the net profit, take care of your overhead, including your staff wages, figure out what your net overhead is, and then give even a tiny percent, even if you're only giving like 0.5% of the net profit to that individual, to each member of your staff. We're talking net profit. Now, at 0.5% of net profit, if you've got 10 staff, right, you're only losing 5% of your net profit. But the staff is no longer working for their wage. They're working as a unit to make a higher income, to make part of that net profit. It will help drive the customer and drive the staff to promote the business, Okay, because you're giving them, now this can all be done together. You've got their wage, you've got bonuses you can handle, you've got the net profit that they're working for. And don't kid yourself. That little bit of money will help immensely. Okay. And it's the same issue with any of the work. Any of the work that you're doing, any of the effort you're putting in, give credit where credit is due. The biggest thing that I found, and I had to go around metaphorically with a couple of starship pilots, because they were always yelling at their staff when they weren't doing it right. Okay. Because of the fact that they were not doing it right. I told them flat out, look, you got to remember, whenever you're dealing with anybody, whether it's staff or just a person on the street, okay, once that is done, turn around and you minimize the negative. If they've done something that you're not happy with, keep it quiet. Keep it contained. If it's in the middle of an area, if we're talking about it being out in public, pull them aside to a relatively quiet place. Keep it short, keep it sweet, and just point out where the problem was and work out how to deal with it. Okay. If you're on shift, quite frankly, that should be no more than a 3 or 4 minute stop. However, when somebody does something really good, okay, and I don't care if it's somebody you're working with, somebody you're talking to, or simply you want to see a smile on a waiter's face or on a waitress's face, come right out and tell them loud enough that you're really happy with their service. And I mean the verbal side of it. I mean, certainly tip appropriately. I do encourage tipping if you're happy. Okay. Or like the song says, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. You can do that one too. But when you're dealing with people, the most powerful word in any language for getting a decent response out of people is call them by name. And I do mean their name. I don't mean just any name you can come up with. Okay. But when you minimize you minimize the negative, maximize the positive, you'll find regardless of the situation, it works more effectively. Okay, and this applies to, I've seen this happen with every race I've dealt with. Okay, humans, no matter where they come from, no matter what color they are, what gender they are, I'm a firm believer that if they're doing the job, and if they're doing the job that is required, pay them the same amount. You do not pay, oh, look, you're male, so we pay you more, or you're female, so we pay you more, or whatever. You don't. You're a person, you're doing the job that was laid out, and you're doing it properly. You get paid the same amount. That's just the way I've always looked at it. Okay. The other thing that I've found out, and, Carl, this will make sense to you. Okay, you're getting ready to sell your art. Okay. And absolutely, when you get a business up and running, and I'll tell you this, try that in English. I will put it to you this way. When you get a business up and running and you have an idea and you've got something solid to work with, let me know and I will be more than happy to give you a shout out on here. And hopefully by then I'll have, 500, 1,000 viewers, subscribers. I'm sure hoping it goes that way. Right now, I'm not entirely certain if I've even got the answer. Let's see, if we go to there. I am just going into, there we are, into my channel. And right now we are sitting at 241. Quite honestly, I'm hoping to get, one of my goals as far as the subscribers go on YouTube here is to get up, over the 1,000 mark. But I'll settle for getting up over the 300 for the moment. Actually, in all fairness, I look at it this way. I watch it on a regular basis. I'll be happy when I hit 250. But one thing to consider, and I've always held this way where it comes to artwork. Okay, when you're doing artwork, what happens is most people buy the artwork and then they turn around and say and they will use it for whatever. Okay, to me, there's something fundamentally wrong with this. Okay, now the reality of it is, when you look at it, the artwork, when you're dealing with your artwork, Okay, take a look at that and understand there's a lot of people that will they buy the artwork, then they go on and make money off the artwork. Because, if you think about it, this book, okay, if this was just a plain white book, it wouldn't catch people's attention as much as it does. Okay, the artist that did this design, okay, in my opinion, did a fabulous job of it. And we've already got the third cover already designed. But when an artist gets paid, and this is where one other thing that I put in with that I've got in my algorithm, okay, is these books, I know how much I'm making in the way of a profit with them. Okay. But again, the algorithm that I worked out comes out of the net profit side of it. Because let's say, for instance, like I had a client out east that was working when I was doing I was traveling to do psychic readings. They set up an event for me that ended up netting me a fair chunk of readings. Well, I paid a percentage of it to them because of the effort they put in. Okay, this is just the way I personally run my business. This does not mean it's the only way to do it. As I told somebody the other day, I never learned how to be greedy, which, I says, I don't know, the way the world is right now, maybe I should have, but I just can't be bothered. Okay. Went off page I was supposed to be on. Here we are. Absolutely. Raven's just making comment. The positive reinforcement is a wonderful way to give as well as receive. Absolutely. One of the biggest tricks that I found, and it's the only gift that costs nothing to make, and nobody complains about getting it given back to them. That is, if you put a smile on your face, whether it's real or not, you put a smile on your face, it is the one thing that costs you nothing but a little bit of effort. Okay. And it makes everybody around you feel better. If somebody smiles back at you, they're giving you back the gift, it'll make you feel better. Okay. And that particular little tool is one of these things that is so fundamental in personal life and in business. It is so absolutely fundamental that if you're striving to make it to get ahead in this world, and let's face it, I don't know what country everybody's in, okay, but I do know the way that politicians deal with taking care of their people. Okay, most people you sort of get by a little bit at a time, as it were, right? But is it a good idea to rely on the government to pay you and keep you going? Not really. If you think about it, what they're doing is taking the tax they're sending you, that you're sending them, turning around and giving some of it back to you. Well, in my opinion, if you can figure out how to increase your income, whereby you don't have to wait for money to come back, you've got it right there. Okay. This is one of the reasons why I'm trying to figure out how to make sure, like I set this thing up, this thing buy me a coffee up. It's another way of dealing with things. But the reality is, sooner or later, I mean, let's face it, I'm pushing 59. Sooner or later, I'm not going to be working. At least that'd be the theory. Probably not a good theory. But I've got all these books on the go. And the other one that I haven't mentioned at this point is this funny little one. I write in actually 5 different genres. Okay. And this one is called Mr. Dreamcatcher. It's a children's book. Okay. As you can tell, writing is just what I do. But the funny thing is, I was talking to a gentleman one day, okay, and this applies to every race I've run into. Okay, some people are really gifted at their artwork. Some people are gifted tacticians. Some are phenomenal builders. My father was one of these people that there was an old saying. If he didn't have the tool, if he didn't have the piece of equipment he needed, regardless of what it was, wood, metal, it didn't matter. If he didn't have the material, the item, he'd build it. If he didn't have the tool to build the item, he'd build the tool. Right. And if he didn't have the machine to build the tool, he'd build that first. There was nothing I could think of that my father ever could not build. Aside from, I don't know if he tried building a nuclear reactor. I know somebody else that did. But everybody has a strength. Everybody has a strong suit to them. Okay, from every single walk of life. I've seen people that can absolutely do phenomenal things, with weaponry in the way of war. Now, and again, this boils down to the more advanced mankind gets, the stronger mankind gets, they seem to focus so much on fighting each other. And, the aliens are going to attack us and, we'll just chase them off. No, you won't. Okay. Because they've got the same problems. In a lot of cases, their social skills are, to say the least, a little less involved than some people. But what happens is when they go to war, they go with the idea of, we're killing whatever is in the way. They do not have rules of war except win. Okay. Now, in my eyes, when I'm looking at my home, and this is what started this whole thing, was I'm not happy with the feel of my house, of my home. It's got to be cleared up. So I got up at 3:30 this morning and started doing things. And I've already got my house all sorted out. I've got the hallways all done. I got the kitchen and the dining room sorted out. When I get done here, I will be going from here to check with the bank. If the bank is open today, and I really don't know if it is, then I will be shipping the books off today. If it is not open, no, I've already got your address. I was just going to say, Carl, I need to make sure I've got your address, but I'll be going off and dealing with a whole bunch of things. If the post office is open, I'll send stuff out today. If not, it'll be Tuesday, because if it's not open today, you can bet it'll be closed Sunday and Monday, because Monday is another holiday. At least as far as I know. But the books will be on their way by Tuesday. This much is certain. Because I've got them in stock. It's just a case of slide them into an envelope, put the address on, and send them off. So that's the way that goes. Okay. But it really boils down to taking a look at anybody you're dealing with and ask yourself flat out, are you happy with, are you treating that person in the way that you desire to be treated? A point in fact, Carl, where it comes to your paintings, where it comes to pricing, two things you look at. Number one, you've got obviously you got to cover your costs. Don't forget to include at least something for your effort. Okay, and remember, you got to be making a profit. But here's the kicker to it. Set the price at the price you would personally be willing to pay. Do not worry about what the rest of the market looks like. Don't look at this idea of how much can I charge? How much can I get away with? You never set the price at what you'd be willing, at what the market says. Set it at what you would be willing to pay. That's the market you're interested in. For instance, this book, okay, Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams. Okay, there is no way I would turn around and sell the book itself at $30 a book. Okay, without shipping. There is no way I would put that kind of price on, because I'd never buy it. Okay, at $10, including $20 including shipping. Okay, I would do it quite readily. It's not that big of a book. Okay, but when you're doing the work yourself, and don't forget, whenever you're anything, and this is where the writing comes in, and where you can make a lot of money. Something to keep in mind, Carl. When you do a piece of artwork up, take that piece of artwork. Okay, get it professionally printed. Do the artwork yourself, but hang on to the original. Okay, get prints done and sell them at a little less than what you would the original. And the reason for that is they become an instant moneymaker. You've got no more overhead, but you can make a lot of money on them. And rest assured, when I talk about making money, just to give you an idea of how profitable artwork can be, I saw somebody sell, they took a white canvas. That's all they did. Took a white canvas. They put a basic frame around the outside of it. They called it whiteout. They didn't put any paint on it. They took the canvas and they called it whiteout. And they sold the dang thing for a high six-figure balance. Now, to me, this is insane. Okay, when I'm looking at the work that went into my novels, okay, there's a lot of work that goes into them. Okay, there's a lot of effort that goes in from a lot of people. This is why the price goes up. Okay, but everybody I've seen, like I was talking to one gentleman. It was funny, I call him a gentleman, but it was a lot less than that. There was this little chap that I knew, right? There was nothing to him. He was not an imposing individual, but the guy could make music boxes like you would not believe. His level of artwork was of artistic capacity, especially in the auditory field, was absolutely remarkable. Okay, so do not, and again, for anybody that's looking at doing something, doesn't matter what it is. It can be, it can be looking at upgrading your wardrobe, and Lord knows I need to upgrade mine, which is one of the goals that I've got in mind for this year. Okay, I've just cleared everything out of the way. I've become debt free. I've got people that I'm talking to now that are, which reminds me, I got to contact my Italian publisher, see where she's standing. But whenever you take a look in the mirror, look at something what you're content with. I'm very content with the fact that I've dropped in the last year. I have dropped some 40. Yeah, I've dropped 40 pounds now. I am so happy with that. I've hit a bit of a plateau, which isn't making me happy, but I'll work with it. Okay. But with that in mind, okay, find what you're happy with. If you're content with it, then absolutely stay on it. If you're not, make a change. People will tell you change is hard, change is painful, change is frightening. But here's what they overlook. I'm talking to you right now, and I'm betting dollars to donuts that nobody in the room is cowering in fear or writhing around on the floor in agony because their ears are shifting gears to hear. Okay, well, thank you so much, Raven. The funny part about it is people talk about change being difficult. Now, when it came to my dropping the weight, I knew my blood pressure was too high. It took me 10 days to drop my blood pressure into a functional level. It's now back to normal. But when you're looking at dropping weight, I heard one medical person, actually a number of medical people, turn around and go, "Oh, cutting back on your food isn't going to work. It doesn't work that way." I'm telling you, that's all I did, aside from change my activity level a little. Never used any diet program, never used any diet additives or any supplements. Okay, I simply cut back on the amount I was eating and moved a little more. And ideally, what you're looking at, and I found this out the easy way, okay, it didn't take you a day and a half to get there. Okay, it just didn't. Now, sometimes genetics will play a part and you're just stuck where you are. Dwarves are a prime example. They are heavy-set individuals, but they're also extremely muscle-bound and temperamental. Okay, part of their heavy-set, I suspect, is because 90% of what they eat and drink that's possible. 90% of what they eat and drink is fermented, which may be part of why they're a little heavier set. But the thing is, if you cut back what you're eating, but eat properly, the answer to, if you do that, the weight will come off. Ideally, a pound to a pound and a half a week is your best move, in my opinion. I'm not a doctor, but I do know I've dropped the weight and I feel phenomenally better than I did. I've got a bad leg. Cut the weight off. and all of a sudden it doesn't cause me as much trouble. The answer to your question there, Carl. Carl has asked, do you think we can communicate with YouTube live connection? I don't know. Okay, this is one of the things I've got to figure out how to deal with. Okay, and this is going to be a work in progress for a while. Okay, I'm not planning on ending this. It's funny, when I first started doing the YouTube channel at all, people pushed me for months to get onto it. Okay, and I kept putting it off for one reason or another. Now that I've got it on, it literally is part of my day. And I find this now with just going live here, and I've only done two live streams before this. Okay, but it just feels right to do it. To possibly give somebody something to work with, to move forward with. And I'm looking at the different things. The idea is to help people realize when I talk about somebody's home, I'm talking about whether it's a starship, a car, the back, a sleeper in a truck, a house, it doesn't matter. The home is where the heart is. That is where the energy gets worked around. The house is governed by the backbone of the house, of anybody's house, is the financing. That's what you have to work with. And by combining the financing and the home feel, the material and the feel of it, you'll get a unified front. Okay. And it really boils down to, yeah, unfortunately, yeah. I mean, congratulations with losing the weight, Carl. Lousy method. Carl goes, I lost a lot of weight with my health, COPD. Not a good way to lose weight. I mean, great for losing the weight, but I'll tell you, it's a rough run. Okay. But the reality from my standpoint is that all you have to look at, okay, is you have to take a look at the way you're dealing with things, and with combining those, you can actually make things happen a lot faster. This is why I talk about feng shui as well, but not in the way. Feng shui does not work. I mean, it works beautifully, but the way it's laid out in most of the books, it's done on Eastern philosophy, which is great. It works great for them in that way because their entire culture is built that way. But the principle is absolutely right. Okay, you get the energy in your office working properly, get the clutter out of the way, and you will find things run more smoothly. You'll also find your stress level drops. As you get your material world sorted out, you get rid of the clutter, and this is coming from a professional pack rat. Okay. When you're dealing with clutter will block the flow of energy. Much like you pour a whole pile of rocks into a stream of water, the water will have a problem getting through. Clear it out, it'll run more smoothly. You clear the energy out, you get rid of the clutter, and focus on the things that you do like in your life. You alter the ones that you're not content with. Okay, I was not content with my eyes the way that they were working where it came to driving. So what did I do? I altered them. I mean, part of it's been physical, but because it wasn't working fast enough, I went and got a new pair of glasses. I modified what was going on. Now, these are still my primary ones if I'm using them. Around the house, I actually don't use them much. But when I'm sitting away from the computer, I can't see the clock. Okay, so I still use them that way. Yeah, very much. Carl's just mentioned that, wearing no shoes in the house is common rule with the Japanese, which is very true. In my house, my common rule is if your shoes are on your feet when you come through the door, make sure they're on your feet when you leave. Feng Shui has worked phenomenally well. This is why I take a look at the energy flow, and I suspect, like Raven's just commenting on Feng Shui is amazing. I suspect very strongly that I suspect, Raven, you probably see energy as well. And if that's the case, then you're one of these lucky people, much like myself, that can look at the energy flow and go, that's working really well. I mean, I can go down to the skateboard park and watch the energetic echo as people travel across the bowl. You know, but yeah, these are all little bits and pieces of the same thing. You know, it's the same as when you're looking at the overall health. If you take it now, I talk about the health of the body, but also the health of the home and the house. Okay, the home is what it feels like in the place you spend most of your time. The house is a physical construct, but working together, they provide your life. Okay, and that is one of the biggest things. Okay, that makes sense. That's how I started. I used to feel energy density, and then I managed to modify it a little where I can now actually see the flow itself. Yeah, neighbors are incredible. I'm a recluse. I've got good neighbors that don't bang on my door every day, and I don't hear them screaming at each other. But seriously, having one of the best ways to keep the crime level in an area low is treat your neighbors decently. Get to know who they are. If you get along with your neighbors, the odds are much lower that they're going to end up stealing from you. The reality is, I was lucky with the whole way this thing went, but since we're winding down to the end here, and I've got things I've got to get done, you've got things you've got to get done. I will be back tomorrow at 8 p.m. from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Okay, this is just the routine that I'm going to be going on for the foreseeable future. Okay, I'm going to make a few notes here, which I probably should have been doing, right, to make sure I stay somewhat organized. Don't know how well that's going to go. Like the videos and like the shows I do with Spaced Out Radio, I respond to the way that people, to the flow of the chat room, and that's where it went. So that's where we went. It's easier for me, and quite frankly, I'm hoping it's more enjoyable than just listening to me prattle on about whatever. Okay, but we're down to the last couple of minutes here. Carl, I will be contacting you directly here just to make sure I've got the address right before I do anything with it. Okay. But the reality is, when I was talking about this word of mouth advertising, that applies to everything I deal with. I just found a way to break it down. Okay. And because I'm using it just inside, there's no way anybody can look at it and go, oh, that's pyramid. Well, so is everything else in existence, including your very existence. Okay. And this is something that we all have to realize, is that everybody has strengths, everybody has weaknesses. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Carl just goes, I'll send you a picture of my cooking. I could teach you how. I found I'm really good at single pan dishes. Really good means they don't make you throw up and they'll keep you alive. This is why my son likes eating over at his mom's place, because she's a phenomenal cook. Right. Myself, my metabolism was way too high, and therefore my sense of taste never developed. It was more a question of getting the fuel into the furnace than it was figuring out whether it was right. Okay. That's just the reality behind it. The biggest holdup I have where it comes to the kitchen, frankly, is that I don't track time and I don't track space well. This is why I had to keep I keep putting my glasses on, is so I can see the clock, because I know we're coming down to the last couple of minutes here. Well, fairness, we're down to the last few. With that in mind, okay, like I said, I will be back again tomorrow. If you had a question that we didn't get around to, drop me a line. There's in the comment section. I think there's a comment section under here. But check out the other videos. Every one of my videos has below them a list of contact points and the list of different books that I've written, all listed underneath it. Absolutely. And I mean, there are people that have asked me, can I contact you directly? The answer is yes. Okay, I just have to work around my own schedule with it, that's all. But I'm absolutely open to talking to people, but I only work with Skype or Messenger. Okay, I mean, I work with YouTube here for this, right? But Skype and Messenger are the only two speech methods I use. And I work with video because I like seeing who I'm talking to. That said, I will be back again tomorrow. I've got a bunch of things I got to get done. You've got things you've got to get done. But thank you so much for joining me. I do appreciate it. And I do hope to see you tomorrow, or for those of you on the other side of the world, more likely next week. And I will see you in a little while. Y'all take care of yourself, and please do stay positive.